Hey, I am coming to you from a place called Robinvale, which is up on the border. The traditional owners of Robinvale were, oh wow, that was good timing, were the Lutji people and the Duddy people. And both of those, I couldn't find a lot of information. I haven't had a great deal of time, but both of those people groups were absolutely decimated by smallpox. But this is actually a really, really important kind of place, and there's an island here with lots of cultural artifacts. So just want to pay my respects to them and just acknowledge that this is the land that I'm sitting on right now, and the Corellas are enjoying it too. So assessment task 2 is a portfolio, and the whole point of the portfolio is really to get you investigating the community that you're going to be doing your project for. Now, often what happens is we get started and we go, oh, we're going to deal with mental health, and we just come up with an idea, but we don't think about where the project is, and it just doesn't make any sense. There's no point trying to solve a problem that we don't understand the context. So the whole point of this is to really get you to think quite carefully about the nature of the community, the strengths of the community, the history of the community, so that when it comes time to create ideas, you've actually got a really good foundation as to how that fits together. Now, it's 1,500 words in total, plus the group component that I'll talk about in a minute, it's basically 3 500-word sections. These sections, it's a portfolio, so think of those as each a little article in a magazine, kind of. They don't have to connect to one another. Put them under the titles that we've included. That'll be fine. So the first component is really looking at First Nations community in the area. So I want you to do some digging. Who are the First Nations community that were the traditional owners of that land, and what do we know about them? I know that a lot of this information has been lost, a lot of these stories have been lost, but I want you to do some digging and see what you can find out. See what you can learn about the people who lived there and what enabled them to thrive. Okay, do some digging, see what you can find out. Because what I want you to do is to really answer the question, what about this place held cultural significance for First Nations people, and how might these things have enabled community to thrive there for thousands of years? So if you think people have been doing community in this space, in Robinvale, for instance, you'll be working on a different community, for thousands of years. And here we are trying to work out, how do we get community to thrive? And we're not asking the question, well, how did First Nations community do it for so long? So what I'm asking you to do is think about that question. So obviously, I'm right in front of the river. Do you think that might have had something to do with it thriving? Definitely. Are there cultural sites here? There are scar trees here. There are stories here. There is, all sorts of different things that were significant for First Nations communities that enabled them to thrive. Okay, so do some investigating. What can you learn about First Nations community and culture, and how did that enable them to thrive? Okay, I want you really thinking about how does having a river, what are all the different ways that having a river enables you to thrive? Why would scar trees enable you to thrive? What are the different things that would enable you to thrive? The second section is really thinking about the community as it stands right now. The first one is really thinking about the history, okay, the First Nations community, I guess, before Western or white settlement. The second section is really thinking about the community as it stands right now. So I want you to do some investigating, obviously do the module, have a look at demographic data, you'll do interview with the community as well, do some independent research, and to get an understanding of what the community is all about. What do they do well? What do they have? What don't they have? What resources do they have? What community groups do they have? What works? All of those kinds of things. What are the demographics? Are people there wealthy? Are they farmers? Are they industrial? What are they? And then think about how do those characteristics, and when I say characteristics, I mean anything that you could use to describe the community as a characteristic, how do those characteristics enable the community? How do they influence health and well-being? And I want you to really try and focus on the positive elements of health rather than just the negative elements, okay? How does having lots of open land influence the health of the community? How does, obviously the river we've already talked about, but how does, there's a great big community centre here, for instance. Now that's quite a big centre for a little town of, kind of 8 to 10,000 people, but how does that influence the health and well-being of the community? So I want you to describe 3 or more community characteristics. So you need to do some investigating, have a look at Google Maps and Facebook and all those kinds of things, and then and make a good argument for how they might influence health and well-being. Now for this section, what I want you to do is I want you to think about how do the characteristics of the community, so all those things we thought about before, whether it's the community centre, the weather, the river, the the low socioeconomic status, the high socioeconomic status, whatever it might be, how might they influence health in your discipline area, okay? So you're a dentist, how do they influence teeth health, oral health? Your physio, how do they influence, whatever you do, physical health? How do they influence fitness if you're an exercise scientist? If you're not sure what your discipline is going to be, just try one on for a little while, right? So I want you to really think creatively and carefully about how to make an argument about how the characteristics of the community influence health and well-being in the area of your discipline. Don't fall into the trap of just going, they haven't got a dentist, therefore, okay? I want you to really think about the different things. Now, yes, one of them might be the lack of that health discipline. But remember that one of the biggest influences on oral health, as an example, is the presence of fluoride in the water, okay? So there are lots of other things. Physical health, if you're able to get around and, there are sporting activities, then that can influence physical health, mental health, there's all sorts of different things. But think really carefully about how the characteristics of the community influence health in your discipline area. Now for this final bit, you're going to have to work as a group, okay? This is really, really important that you collaborate. It's designed in a way that you can't just cut it up and do it separately and then stick it back together again. So after you've all done your first 3 sections, then come back together as a group and then work out what are the characteristics of the community? What are all of the different things? And think about what are the strengths of the community? What are the assets of the community? What does it do really, really well, right? So describe those. And this is going to come from your reading and from your investigations. Choose the best thing from among the different things that different people in the group said. And then I want you to identify where might it be best to put some effort next, okay? So let's say you're working in a community and you go, oh my goodness, we need, teenagers need a dance club. It's an interesting idea, and it might be merited in some areas, but in Robinvale, it'd just be good if the teenagers had a job. Okay, so think about prioritizing. Look at the nature of the community, and then go, okay, what are the next things that we reckon they should work on? Imagine your team as a group of consultants, and your job is to decide where the community should be spending money next. Now, you will do some of this in class. You do need to make sure that you have a schedule worked out so that you have your preparatory work done, those first 3 components, before you're able to have that conversation. Basically, the word count, I just want you to have a look at the number of people in your group and then go, okay, we've got 5 people, that means we've got to write 1,000 words together, okay? Don't write 200 words each. We'll talk about strategies, but it might be the case that someone who writes really quickly, really badly, smashes out, 600 words. But then a bunch of other people put in a bunch of effort and put in ideas and things like that. So think strategically about it. I want you to be able to do this in the most efficient way possible, but I want you must work as a team and do not cover for one another, right? Because I can assure you it's going to come back and haunt you later, okay? So work as a team, use this as a way of pulling your team together. Super, super important. All right. Get it done. We will have some time in class to ask about this assessment task, but feel free to get started on that background information. There's no reason you can't start the moment you watch this video. Catch up.